a lot of times we have to help as leaders, we have to help unlock that power and that potential in somebody, not so that they can believe in themselves.
Yes.
Right? That's really important because a lot of times we run into people who honestly are just so used to being told what to do that they're afraid to make decisions.
Hey, what's up, family? Welcome to another episode of the Future is Here podcast, where we discuss leadership principles that you need to lead this next generation. And so, as always, I'm here, Tommy Nixon, with my man, Robert Aboides.
What's up?
And today, here's what we're talking about. We're talking about empowerment, right? Empowerment. And so there's this thing that's tossed around a lot, Rob, that's kind of like, hey man, let me just empower you, dude.
Yeah.
Can I empower you, right? But we want to actually dissect this a little bit because we actually think we're not sure you understand what that word means.
We don't know that you know what that word means.
Exactly, dude. And definitely when we do one thing, but we're calling it something else. And so tell us a little bit about this idea of empowerment.
Yeah, man. Well, I think, first of all, it's one of those words that gets overused,
super overused.
right?
Yeah.
Especially in Christian circles, I think we see it on mission statements. It's all over vision statements, right? Everybody has it. We meet with a lot of leaders. We talk strategic planning, right? And we see it on their core values, like, we want to be empowering. We want to empower people. But I think that not many people actually know what that means. Like, how do you actually empower an individual? But before we get into what empowerment is, let's talk a little bit about what it is not.
Yeah.
Because that's important, right? Now, for me, I think empowerment very often gets confused or it gets reduced to simply like delegation.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
Man.
Let me for us. I think you would agree that delegation is not the same as empowerment.
No.
Right. How do you see delegation?
No, I mean, delegation is a lot of the ways, I mean, in a practical sense, like, can you do something that I don't want to do anymore?
Oh.
That, I mean, just, and I get it, right? And at the same time, there's this place where it's funny when we meet with leaders, a lot of times they're really proud that I delegated, all this stuff. I'm not doing this stuff anymore, which usually means they just filled it with a bunch of other activity, stuff that they feel that they really like.
Stuff that they like. Yeah, exactly.
So can I get rid of the stuff that I don't like? And yet there's a leadership principle there where it's like, you actually in your lane, you want to do what you were best created to do. You want to minimize your weaknesses and things, and you want to utilize the giftings of others. That's very different than just being like, hey man, I just want to empower you. Can you do all the tables and chairs? I just want to empower you to do, and you're like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm the executive pastor now. So, thanks, pastor. You know what I mean? There's a weird part to that. So mostly that's how I look at delegation.
No, I agree with you. It's really the giving away of things. Usually the way it's done is like, hey man, you know what? You shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
Like, you're Tommy Nixon. You should give that away to somebody else,
Right.
And so we give away those things that we feel like, we're a little too important to be doing those kinds of activities. Right. So by definition, though, when we say that we're too important, that means that the person I'm giving it to is not as important as I am.
Exactly. And that kind of goes against our, last episode we talked about who can be a leader, what is leadership, what's leadership development. And we're really saying you're not being intentional with your empowerment. You don't know what it means. And delegation is just like, I haven't really thought through this, so I'm just going to give the stuff that I don't like to do to somebody else. There is a place there where you thinking through it and you're like, hey, listen, you're actually really good at this. I'm not very good at this. And to move the mission and vision forward, can we talk about how can I make this a part of what you do every day? Because you're actually really good at it. You enjoy it. That's different than just being like, who can I give? Yeah, you, whoever's closest to you. Now they're doing all that stuff.
Right.
And I run into a lot of leaders that are, you ever run into a leader where their title is one thing, but then you learn about what they actually do and you're like, I don't.
Well, let's not get into titles because the titles are all over the place when we think about it.
It's a weird thing where you're like, I thought you're the executive pastor, or I thought you're the COO, and why are you doing this kind of stuff? And so
Yeah.
that there's some tension there as well.
Well, I think the part of delegation, and I get, just hear us when we say this. There are times when delegation is important. And you talked about one of them, right? That maybe you're actually better at it
Yeah,
than I am,
absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And so we can divide the work in a way that everybody does what they're gifted to do. And so that kind of delegation or, imparting of the work, I think makes sense. But a lot of times when we're delegating things, what we're doing is I'm giving away responsibility and accountability only. And what I mean by that is now when I hand over responsibility, I'm saying, okay, you now have a task to do. I'm giving you control over this task. And a lot of times that responsibility comes with a very specific set of instructions. Oh, and by the way, this is how you need to do it. So now you've completely taken any kind of ownership away from that person because you've given them a very specific set of instructions and a responsibility now to get that particular task or activity done, which also comes with the accountability because guess who's going to get in trouble when that task doesn't get done?
Or doesn't get done how they want it to get done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Talk about that.
Well, so that's so when we talk about empowerment, right, it's actually that, we'll talk about that in a minute, but as we give power away, really.
Yeah.
But it's one thing to give people responsibility over something. It's different to give them authority over something.
Oh, yeah. That's
And
good.
so the difference between responsibility and authority is to go, one, I just need you to get a task done.
Yeah.
Which then kind of objectifies the person. And guys, we know there are things that just need to get done. I get it.
Sure.
But what I feel like is missing is the intentionality and the conversation around, hey, we're trying to get here. Remember, we're moving people from here to a different state of being.
Yeah.
And you're doing that. And when you're in an organization, a corporation, a business, a church, whatever it is, you're doing that so that you can get to the, through the mission to the vision. But if you're not sitting around and going, hey, here's the problem we're trying to solve, and you're inviting people in on that, and I'm just delegating because
I'm too busy and I need somebody to get the stuff done that I'm responsible for.
Right. And I'm too important. And that actually shapes the whole corporate culture. That shapes the culture of that space. And then here's how it changes in a really weird way. So now you have people vying for, can I hold the pastor's chair? Can I hold their backpack? So you're vying for, and the more you're important by the tasks that you do, that's how you rise up through the organization. And we're telling you right now, it's toxic. That is a terrible way to lead.
Which goes back to the idea that delegating in tasks that you're too important for, right? Or the sense of like, oh no, you shouldn't be doing that because you're the CEO, you're the pastor, whatever. That kind of flies in the face of Scripture. Because think about like Philippians 2:3, which says that in humility, I need to count others as more significant than me.
Right.
So when I'm delegating things that I don't care about, that I feel too important to do, I'm actually flying in the face of that Scripture. Because it says, no, I need to count you as more important than me. And so why am I giving you, junk work or stuff that I don't want to do? And all of a sudden I'm filling your day with all these menial tasks that, honestly, what it does is it creates a very unfulfilling job or responsibility or role for a person, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times, now we're not saying don't delegate.
That's not.
Please,
right. Yeah.
please hear us. That's not what we're saying. There's a right time and a right way to delegate. We're just saying don't confuse that with empowerment. Now, I delegate work.
Yeah.
But when I delegate work, the question I ask myself is, hey, is my handing this work off to somebody else going to help them grow?
Yeah.
If it doesn't help them grow, then there's no real reason for me. I'll just keep doing it. Right. Now, that's just me, but so when I do delegate something, I want them to learn something from that. Like, oh, hey, this is why I'm giving this to you, because I think this could help you. If you learn to do this task, hey, here's how it can help you in your life, in your marriage, or whatever the case may be, right? So I'm always thinking about, even in the delegation, I'm thinking about that individual, caring for that individual and wanting them to grow as part of that delegation process.
And that's part of it for me too, is when I do that kind of stuff, a lot of times, sometimes I'll hold on to things longer than I should. And people come, they go, Tommy, let me take that off of you. They're saying that to the leader. But a lot of times I'm always thinking about, why don't I want to do this? You know what I mean? I have to also kind of go through the process myself and go, is it time for me to give this away so that I can lead better, so that it'll be better for everybody? I'm always thinking, how do you kill multiple birds with one stone, right? Like I'm always thinking like, this can't just be beneficial for me because that's not that verse, right? That's not Philippians. That's not putting others ahead of me. That's not humility. That's like, do you know who I am? I'm really important. Like I'm the CEO. You're onto this like title thing.
Yeah.
When I'm going, no, if I make this move, I've got to convince myself, and the way I lead is I got to convince my leaders that are leading with me, consensus. This is why I'm doing that. It was hard for me to take on an executive assistant because I felt honestly a little weak sauce. Like, oh, bro, you can't do your own schedule, bro. Oh, you're too good for that. But when I brought it to the group, it was like, hey, we think this would actually really help you out so that you can do these things because we need you out, facing outward more.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want that. I don't want UYWI to be built off of me but here I am doing a bunch of content for it. But even this content, we worked with our man, Andy, right? And we were like, and Andy's going, we need more stuff to put out. And then I'm talking to you and you're going, hey, we need to write this book.
Right.
We need to get this leadership. And by the way, Tommy, we're a leadership development organization. Shouldn't we be doing stuff on leadership development, right?
Maybe.
Okay, so there's multiple birds that we can, that means I need help here so that we can give here so that you fill this here so that Andy's doing what he needs to do because that's what that process looks like. It's very different than being like, I just don't, I'm not good at this. I don't want to do it. Hey, you, can you clean this up?
Yeah. No, and I think a lot of times with delegation, what happens is you're actually not delegating even to the right people.
Yeah.
Right. You're just delegating it just to get it off your plate. I think in the case that you're talking about with getting an assistant, or like we have a person here who's our operations manager, right? There comes a point at which your organization is big enough that, or is doing enough, right? That you need somebody who is going to be responsible, who their whole job or role is to handle a lot of the tasks, that are kind of help with the workflow of the organization, things that you were taking on as a leader and others were taking on. So I feel like that's okay. We're creating a role for that, right? But that role is important because in a sense, they're the glue that holds everything together because if those things don't get done, we actually are going to be less effective, right? And less efficient, not just as a leader, but as an organization as well.
So here's another real practical example from our leadership. My executive assistant is Jamie, right? So Jamie's there.
She's awesome.
And Jamie just came to us, right? Because we just worked out organizationally. Here's what do we call it? The chart to say, here's how you can grow here.
Oh yeah, our career advancement
framework, right? Because we're thinking, because we actually do this stuff, friends.
Yeah.
So we're thinking like, how do you get up? And Jamie came to us because I'm always going, well, Jamie, what is it that you want in your life? What's the big vision here? She came to us and said, hey, I really love that advancement framework. What does that mean for me?
Yeah.
And then we started talking about, well, there's some other opportunities here, possibilities. What are the things you can do? And then we talked about her practical season of life.
Where she is in life,
She got 3 littles, not in school. And she's going, I'm thinking about future. I can only give this much right now. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And you fill an important role, you're valued. But what's next? And does that also mean that then I lose my EA, at some point because she wants to advance in another area? I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
That's great. That gives somebody else an opportunity.
That's leadership development.
That's the leadership development thing. And so that's really what we're talking about here. But one of the things too that we want you guys to understand is when we talk about, so we kind of dealt with delegation. But when we talk about empowerment, what are we talking about? And so just to give us the actual definition of that is from Webster's, right? Is to enable, give official authority or legal power to promote self-actualization, to realize fully one's potential.
Yeah.
Which fits directly with our belief around what is leadership development. It's that people are in your care, not your charge.
Yeah.
But because they're in our care, our hope is I'm here to help them be everything that they were created to be while on the mission and vision of what we have, right? But in my world, because I come from the community development space, I come from a lot of justice spaces, and I want to know your thoughts on this. When it came to empowerment, there's all these things like, we want to empower the neighbors, we want to empower people. There was a discussion within that community of like, well, you actually really can't empower anybody because they have their own power. All you're doing is helping them realize that, and then have the agency to enact in that power that they have. I think theologically would say, well, we're all made in the image of God. We can all have the Holy Spirit, so you actually have the power to do that. But our structures are the ones that are hampering that actual empowerment process. So in one sense, maybe you're listening to this and you come from that kind of space and you're like, yeah, I guess really it's that they have the Holy Spirit. They're made in the image of God. They're already created to who they're created to be. They're just on that process. My job as a leader is to actually create the spaces and the environment for them to actually self-actualize, become who they created to be, but also give them authority in that space.
That's good.
One of the things that I am, my type of leadership style, personality, how I'm made, that can be hard for people, and we've seen it be hard for people at UYWI, is I'm going, okay, hey, here's your role. Hey, what do you want to do with that? What's your vision for it? And they're like, well, why don't you just tell me what to do?
Yeah. I remember we had this conversation.
Because they're used to their leaders just telling them what to do all the time. And I have no interest in that. I'm like, well, but here are the parameters. Here's what you get paid for.
Which, by the way, that's management, not leadership.
Right.
Which we won't get into that. But
oh, man. Management. Yeah. And I hate that because I'm like, I don't want to tell you what to do. You understand where we're heading. We understand what your giftings are. You have all the authority within these parameters, because parameters are helpful.
Sure.
Within these parameters, within this budget, within this area, be the leader. Go do it as you see best.
Yeah.
That's different than delegation.
It is.
Absolutely. Delegation is like, do it how I would do it.
Yeah.
Empowerment would be, I don't know, you're the one gifted in this, so how do you see it?
Yeah. Well, how do you want to accomplish this?
And that's been really hard for a lot of people.
Yeah. I think for me, the way have seen empowerment and see it as a leader is there's really two aspects to it for me. One is giving away ownership, right? Which is different than just, again, delegation, right?
Right.
It's, hey, I'm giving you this, you own it. Now, when you own something, I don't get to tell you how to run it, manage it.
You own it.
You own it. Right? You tell me how you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Right? It would be like me giving you a house and then saying, hey, let me tell you how to decorate that.
Right.
But it's your house.
Yeah.
Right? You get to decide those kinds of
things.
things.
We're going with the Southwest theme. And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. I mean, sure. If you like that. But giving away ownership as a leader, because I might have things that I'm owning that I shouldn't be owning. Right. So I want to give those away. But I want to give full ownership. Again, not just responsibility and accountability, but full ownership of that. The other part of empowerment for me is to look at you and go, there's something in you I need to help unlock.
Yeah.
Right? Now we already know the Holy Spirit power lives in you just like it lives in me as a believer, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to add power to you, right? You got all the power you need.
It's there,
It's there. But a lot of times we have to help as leaders, we have to help unlock that power and that potential in somebody, not so that they can believe in themselves.
Yes.
Right? That's really important because a lot of times we run into people who honestly are just so used to being told what to do that they're afraid to make decisions.
And they're afraid to fail.
And they're afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah, because again, the responsibility and accountability of delegation has told me that, oh, shoot, if I don't do this in the way I'm supposed to do it, or if it doesn't get done,
I get in trouble.
Oh,
yeah.
Right? And so ownership is like, well, you can't get in trouble because it's yours.
And that's where the responsibility piece comes in, because a lot of times people want to stay in that space because they don't want the responsibility because they're afraid to fail. There's fear of reprisal. Like, Tommy's going to be mad at me. And I'm like, I really only would get upset if you kept on making the same mistake over and over. Like, we didn't learn from it. Right. You can try and fail here. That's okay. Try new things, try it out, because that's part of the process of you figuring it out for you. If you've only been in spaces where you had to do what you were told, and then you come to the freedom where I'm like, I don't know, what do you think is the best way?
Yeah.
That's scary. And
It
so
is.
it's going to take time, which, by the way, leaders, when you're hearing us say this and we're saying you need to empower your people, right? Not just delegate. One of the things with empowerment is that you are actually one that they're going to fail, right? But there's an intentionality to help them. You don't just abdicate.
Right.
So you don't just you empower somebody and be like, and you're out.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
that's not leadership. Leadership is you give them parameters. You start them off small. You care about them and help them grow in it. You don't abdicate. And then your job as a leader is to go there and go, how can I support you?
Yeah.
How's it going? Your weekly, monthly check-in. How's it going? What did that work? What you tried? No? Okay, then. And your job is to help them think through it and learn from it.
Yeah.
You have a safe place like that to fail and to grow. One, we talked about retention last, I think.
We did.
Last episode. That helps people retain because they know there's a safe place where you care not about just their productivity. You care about them.
Right.
And that's the empowerment model.
And I think sometimes too, though, when we give away ownership, we're not talking about like full ownership, right? Like you lead the organization, you still have a certain responsibility, whether like in the corporate world, you have shareholders who are watching you, right? In our world, we have board of directors who are making sure that, hey,
resource partners.
Yeah, we have resource partners. So there are people that we as leaders, especially when you're leading organizations, right? That you have to continue to keep that ownership. There's a book, actually, I think it's right behind us, called Extreme Ownership.
Yes.
Written by a couple of Navy SEALs. And one of the things they talk about is that ultimately, if I'm leading you and you fail, I have to own that responsibility.
That's right. Yeah.
I have to own that failure as well, right? I don't get to just say, well, that's on you. Let me fire you because you didn't do what you were supposed to do, right? You failed. Yeah, we see that all the time, right?
Scapegoat. Yeah.
Scapegoat, right? Hey, man, that's not on me. What they're saying is, no, extreme ownership is when you as a leader say, hey, I know you failed, but I own that failureship as well.
Right.
So I always ask, oh man, what could I have done better?
That's right.
What more could I have done to help that person, not have failed? Or how can I help that person recover? Right. And it's in a way that actually helps them grow and so that it prevents that kind of failure in the future.
And I think here's a couple practical things I think you guys can do in your organizations, your churches, and your leadership that can help with this. One is that what Robert's describing is really, that's what helps us start building structures and systems.
Yeah.
Because you learn from it and you go, okay, it seems like everybody that's come into our organizations has had a hard time with this. Okay, well then we need to get better at job descriptions.
Yeah.
We need to have those, right? Please have those, right? We need to be
Which is
clear
empowering.
about the role because that's where you
Parameters.
first start, where these are the parameters.
Yeah.
This is what you get paid for. This is where this is the sandbox you get to play in. It helps you with policies. It helps you with onboarding. Hello.
Yep.
Onboarding, right? Which we've had a problem. We've got better and better at that because so often people show up, they're like, well, good luck with that, right?
Yeah.
So that allowed this process of empowerment to then start to create the systems that you need to help people do that. For clarity is kindness, right?
Yeah.
As they say. So get the clarity. So that's one. Another super practical thing that you can do as a leader is what you're talking about with that book, Extreme Ownership. As the leader, and this is just a leadership principle I live by. As the leader, when you're empowering your people and they have a win, dude, it's their win.
Yeah.
You're like, absolutely, look how amazing my team is. Look what they did.
Yeah.
And you praise them and you give them ups and you go, dude, my team's amazing. So then when you're on the podcast, somebody goes, Tommy, dude, UYWI is killing it. They did this and then I go, oh, my team is pretty amazing. And be honest about it. Don't be that weird false humility thing where it's like, oh yeah,
I got a great team. They're awesome.
Yeah.
And they're not doing anything.
They're not
getting
doing
anything.
Yeah,
done.
don't be like that. But when it's true, you're like, you give them. When they fail, you own that failure.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Because at the end, you're like, look, I'm the one that said yes to them taking the chance on it. It didn't work, but you know what? We learned from it. What that does is it actually protects your people to know that they can take risks, that what you say is true is really true. Because you ever know, at churches be like, hey man, we're a family. And then you get fired up for doing one wrong thing. It's like, that didn't feel like family to me, So we're actually not living out our values. When you do that simple thing, people start to feel real safe. And what it does actually is it builds a reputation for you as a leader. We're like, yeah, is Tommy legit? Yeah, dude, he's for you. Is Robert really, does he live all that stuff? Yep.
Hope so.
And yeah, me too. Send me a DM if we're not living in that, right? But there's grace there too to continue to get better and better and better. A couple practical things, man. What about for you?
I think that's really good. Sort of set of values when it comes to empowerment. There's an interesting thing that I've lived by on the empowered side, right? So again, I've been in corporate spaces, and had a lot of responsibility, but I've always been fortunate, man, that the leaders that I've been serving under have really empowered me. But one of the responsibilities that I feel from the person being empowered is, man, part of my job is to make you look good as my boss. Oh. So I'm always thinking about
I appreciate
how
that.
to do and I do that. I still live that out, right?
Yeah, I've experienced it.
Part of why I do all these systems and why we do the things in excellence and all of that is because, man, ultimately I want Tommy to look good, and I also want to protect them, right? I feel empowered because, dude, I'm actually carrying upward, right? I'm caring for you. And I'm making sure that, hey, the reason why we want to have, for example, fiscal responsibility and integrity and transparency is because I don't ever want anybody to come into this organization and go, yo, Tommy, why you run your finances that way? I don't want that because I care about you as a leader, right? And I feel empowered to steward that. So for those who are being empowered, that also does come with the responsibility, right? That you have to take that responsibility seriously and not just be like, oh, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this, right? What you're supposed to do with it is do the best that you can do with it, but not just for yourself, but for everyone else, for the people that you're working with, for the people who work for you, and for the people that you work for.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll be real. It got me a little emotional when you said that. I'm thinking, we're filming this right now, but I'm thinking about why does that hit me so well? One, I really appreciate that from you, man. I've experienced that, but as you articulate that, there's a certain amount of emotion, and I think what you tapped into is, and leaders, this, it can feel real lonely. So even in the paradigm that we're sharing with you, and this empowerment, and how you lead, and you're about. As you do that, you can also feel like, especially if you're the leader, or you're in top leadership, it's a lot of energy going like this. Yeah. And it's dynamic, right? I learned from you. I learned from everybody in the org, our leaders. But it can feel like, dang, dude, no one's got, you can feel really lonely.
Yeah, like no one's got your back.
No one's got your back. And so it's a real healing thing to be like, oh, I forget. Yeah, people are... and at the same time, it's not about me,
right?
So there's that kind of that tension as well. However, man, it sure is nice to know my team's got my back. My team knows I got their back. I'm not going to throw them under the bus. So there's a mutuality there, and that's really beautiful.
And I think that's part of what's, honestly, if we're just being honest, I think part of what is scary as a leader of empowering people to co-own the mission with you and the vision with you and the organization with you is I don't really know if you care about me.
Oh, man.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't really know if you're for me. I don't, is this just a job to you?
Yeah.
Right. So there's all these fears as a leader that you have, like, I don't want to give this away because, and I can't trust you to do it as well as I can. Like there's all that. These are all the things that I think why a lot of times leaders have difficulty with empowerment. And so they default to delegation.
Yeah. It's less scary. And you have much more control. Friends, what we're sharing with you too is giving away power.
Yeah.
Like you're going, I don't know. While actually it's giving away power while maintaining the responsibility.
Yeah. Accountability.
And accountability. That's not the responsibility over that, but the accountability of like, you own that. But we're telling you it's a better way to be.
Absolutely.
It is such a better way to run organizations. Now, I will say this as a caveat to what we just shared. There are people out there that are giving that kind of loyalty and that kind of, it's not even loyalty, but that kind of care towards their leader that's undeserved. Right. Like there is that part too, where it's like, well, he's just the pastor. And so without any wisdom, because part of what you're saying and what I want people to understand is, I know you're for me and I know you want to make me look good. That's not your core thing, but that's a a byproduct of how
it's
you
something
operate.
I think about.
Yeah, absolutely. But because of that type of relationship, you also have the open door to be like, Tommy, what are you doing, bro? What and there's invitations to that. Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, Rob, do you think this is a good choice? And there's a mutuality there where yes, you're looking out for me, but you also have the responsibility and the care to front me and to go, dude, does that have integrity in it? What about, is that character? Hey, are you doing okay, Tommy? What's going on, man? So there's that two-way street. I think we get in trouble is when that's not there and it's only about honor and respect and all this, spiritualization of the stuff. It actually isolates that leader more.
Yeah.
And that's bad news. So don't do that, but yes.
I mean, it's about two things, and this is probably another episode, but it's about building trust, right? Empowerment is a way of building trust between a leader and the person they're leading, right? Both ways. And the other thing about that is that besides just building trust, is there's this concept that again, we're going to kind of do this together, right? That we own the mission together. Because I think, again, too many times, man, we say, yeah, I empower my people. But then really what I'm saying is, well, yeah, I give them enough responsibility to help me accomplish what I need to do, right? So empowerment, so there's a tethering idea with empowerment, right?
Okay,
that if I'm tethering you, again, that's not empowerment because you're constantly feeling that, like if you start getting too far, I'm kind of pulling you back in, right? And so empowerment is a fully untethered ownership that I'm giving you as a co-ownership that I'm giving you to the mission and the vision that we've been called to.
So good, man. And it's that trust factor.
Yeah.
Which is the issue in a lot of these orgs. There's just, you don't fully trust those people. Yeah.
Right.
Both ways. Yeah.
Absolutely. Both ways.
Well, that's good, man. So, hey, we hope that's been really helpful to you guys today. So what we have talked about, what we want you to walk away with is the idea of what it looks like to actually empower your people.
Truly.
What that means, what it doesn't mean, the difference between that and delegation, and how do you actually some practical, practices that you can do to actually live that out in whatever you're leading, right? Your church, your nonprofit, your business, whatever that is. And so we hope that's been really helpful for you. And thanks for joining us for another episode of the Futures Here podcast. Make sure that you are liking, that you're subscribing to it, that you're sharing this because
commenting,
we want,
asking questions, all that stuff.
Hit us up because we want to know, and we want your question on how do you actually do this? Because you might be like, okay, cool. What does that mean for HR? What does that mean for staff meetings? What does that mean? We got answers for you. And so we hope this has been really helpful for you. And we'll see you guys on the next Future is Here podcast.
Peace.